In a village surrounded by lush forests and rivers, Tortoise, a jumper, was known for his cleverness, though he lacked speed and strength. One day, the boastful Hare stood in the square, declaring, "No one can beat me." His speed was legendary, and no animal dared to challenge him until Tortoise stepped forward. "I'll race you," Tortoise said calmly, his steady gaze meeting Hare's. The Hare laughed. "You? With your tiny legs and heavy shell? This will be over in seconds." Tortoise smiled. "If you're so sure, prove it. Meet me at dawn." The animals whispered in disbelief. As the Hare walked away, certain of victory, Tortoise quietly planned his next move. This would not be the easy race Hare expected. News of the race spread quickly through the animal kingdom. The sky above the forest was alive with the chirping of birds carrying the message, while monkeys swung from tree to tree, gossiping about the unlikely event. The Hare was thrilled. He saw the challenge as an opportunity to cement his place as the greatest in the land. He spent the evening boasting to anyone who would listen. A jumper, however, went home quietly. He did not share his plans with anyone, not even his wife. Instead, he sat under the moonlight, drawing patterns in the dirt with a stick. His clever mind worked tirelessly. "If I cannot outrun the Hare, then I must outthink him," a jumper whispered to himself. He gazed at the stars, a small smile forming on his lips. "Tomorrow will be a day to remember." Meanwhile, Hare prepared for the race with confidence. He lounged under a tree, snacking on ripe fruits. He laughed, thinking of how slow the tortoise was. "This will be over before it begins," he said to himself. Morning came, and the stage was set for a race no one would forget. As the moonlit night deepened, a jumper sat quietly under the baobab tree, thinking hard. He called on his family, his wife and 5 children, who were as slow as he was but shared his cunning. "We will outsmart the Hare," a jumper began, his voice calm but firm. "This race is not about speed but about wit. Here's what we'll do." A jumper explained his plan in whispers, and the family nodded in agreement. They spent the night preparing for the big day, each family member practicing their role until they had it perfect. By dawn, the tortoise family had scattered throughout the race path. Each one found a hiding spot, blending in with the forest. They were ready to execute their plan. Meanwhile, the Hare overslept, as he didn't see the tortoise as a threat. When he finally woke up, he hurried to the starting line, confident and unbothered. As they stood at the starting point, the other animals gathered to watch. The parrot called out, "On your marks, get set, go." The Hare dashed off, leaving a jumper behind in a cloud of dust. But a jumper only smiled and began his slow, steady walk. His plan had already begun. The Hare sprinted ahead, laughing at how far behind a jumper was. This will be over in no time, he thought, enjoying the cheers of the crowd. He didn't bother to look back, knowing that no slow tortoise could catch up with him. As the Hare dashed through the forest, he reached a bend in the path where, to his surprise, he saw a jumper ahead of him, slowly plodding along. "How did you get here?" the Hare demanded, stopping in his tracks. A jumper glanced back and replied calmly, "I'm just running my race." The Hare shook his head in disbelief. "This must be a trick," he muttered, speeding past a jumper again. But as the Hare rounded another bend, there was a jumper again, ahead of him. The Hare's eyes widened. "This is impossible," he shouted, but a jumper simply smiled and continued moving forward. The Hare was now determined to prove his speed. He ran faster, not realizing how Clever the tortoise's plan truly was. The hare, now panting from his relentless speed, decided to rest for a moment under a large tree. Even if I stop, I'll still win, he thought, leaning against the trunk. While he rested, another tortoise appeared, this time further ahead. The hare jumped up in shock. "How many of you are there?" he yelled. But this was part of Ejopa's strategy. His family members were stationed at different points along the path, each pretending to be him. They moved slowly and steadily, ensuring they always appeared just ahead of the hare. The hare raced on, each time finding a new Ejopa ahead of him. The crowd of animals along the path began to murmur. Could the tortoise truly be faster than the hare, they wondered. As the race wore on, the hare's confidence began to waver. The forest seemed endless, and the tortoise's mysterious appearances were wearing him down. The hare pushed himself harder, determined to outpace the tortoise. But the forest was full of twists and turns, and every time he thought he had gained the lead, another tortoise would emerge ahead of him. Exhausted and confused, the hare slowed down, trying to make sense of what was happening. Is the tortoise using magic? He wondered aloud. The tortoise family, hidden in the trees, chuckled softly to themselves. Their plan was working perfectly. By the time the hare realized the trick, it would be too late. Meanwhile, Ejopa, the real tortoise, was making his way steadily toward the finish line. He was slow, but he was consistent, knowing that victory was close. The animals watching from the sidelines were on edge. The race had turned into something far more exciting than they had anticipated. The hare, now drenched in sweat and breathing heavily, began to panic. "This cannot be," he shouted, his once steady confidence now replaced by frustration. He sprinted harder, determined to end this puzzling race. As he rounded another bend, there it was again, Ejopa, just ahead of him, moving at the same slow and steady pace. The hare's legs burned, but his pride pushed him forward. He zoomed past, yelling, "I will win." But with every turn, another tortoise appeared. The hare, now completely exhausted, collapsed onto the dirt path. He pounded the ground with his fist. How is he everywhere?" The animals watching began to cheer for Ejopa. They had started to notice the clever trick but admired the genius of it. The hare, however, remained clueless. Finally, the forest began to clear, and the finish line came into view. The real Ejopa was in the distance, slowly making his way forward. The hare saw him and used every ounce of strength left in his legs to chase him down. But just as the hare closed in, Ejopa stretched his short neck forward and crossed the finish line, leaving the hare stunned. The crowd of animals erupted into cheers as Ejopa crossed the finish line. Birds flapped their wings, monkeys clapped their hands, and even the old elephant trumpeted in delight. The tortoise had won the race. The hare stumbled to the finish line moments later, panting and defeated. He stared at Ejopa, unable to comprehend how the slowest animal in the forest had beaten him. "How did you do it?" the hare finally asked, his voice a mix of anger and awe. Ejopa smiled, his eyes twinkling. "Speed is important, my friend, but intelligence wins the race. You relied on your legs, but I relied on my mind and my family." The hare looked around and saw the other tortoises emerging from their hiding spots. Realization dawned on him, and his ears drooped. He had been outsmarted. The animals learned a valuable lesson that day: arrogance can blind even the strongest, while humility and cleverness can lead to victory. From that day on, the hare was less boastful, and the tortoise became a legend in the forest. Whenever anyone spoke of the race, they would say, "Ejopa may be slow, but his mind is faster than any legs could ever be." And so, the story of the tortoise and the hare became a tale passed down through generations, a reminder that true strength lies not in speed or size but in wisdom and strategy.